This is where they left you. Kale's voice was quiet enough for the winter wind to nearly carry it away. Alara stood at the edge of the snow-covered clearing, staring at a place she knew through fragments, records, and memories too young to be complete. 19 years ago, someone had carried her into this northern forest and left her future to strangers and chance. Now the snow reached the tops of her boots beneath a pale morning sky. Blackstone stood nearly 12 miles behind them, hidden beyond the pine-covered hills. Kale remained several steps away. He had not taken her hand or guided her toward the clearing. Somehow, she understood why. "Are you certain this is the place?" she asked. Rowan matched the location against Dr. Hart's original notation and Mara's testimony. Alara looked toward an old cedar leaning beside the frozen creek. That tree. It appears in both records. She tried to imagine herself here as a child, but the image refused to come. Perhaps that was merciful. For years, the snow had existed in her mind as an accusation. Why had no one wanted her? Why had her name disappeared? Why had those who knew the truth allowed her to grow up believing she had come from nowhere? Now she knew the answer was larger than rejection, but understanding did not make this place feel smaller. "The attachment was authenticated this morning," Kale said. Alara turned. "All of it." The custody references held. Rowan confirmed the declaration and the protected identity under the old covenant rules. Her breath caught. Yesterday, that identity had been hidden behind a classification 19 years old. Today, as guardian, she had the authority to open it. Does Rowan know the name? He verified what authentication required. "Adrian. He knows the custody record." Alara studied Kale. "And you?" "I did not ask." The Alpha King could have requested the information before sunrise. No one at Blackstone would have dared question him. Yet he had brought her here without looking first. "Why come here before we open it?" she asked. Kale glanced across the clearing. "Because once that name is spoken, everyone will tell you what it means. The council will tell you what it means for Blackstone. Rowan will tell you what it means for the review. Mara will tell you what it means for the past." His eyes returned to hers. "None of them gets to decide what it means for you." Alara swallowed. The wind moved loose strands of hair across her cheek. "What if the name changes everything? Then we face what changes. What if it changes nothing? Then you still deserve to know." Once, other people had decided what records would carry her name, what history she could inherit, and whether anyone would know she belonged to something larger than abandonment. Even after Kale found her, people had tried to decide whether she deserved to stand beside him. Every name seemed to arrive with someone else's expectation attached. "There is something else," Kale said. "Under the covenant, authentication gives you the right to open the protected identity. It does not require you to do it today. The royal succession review is waiting. It can wait for your lawful decision. Your throne may be waiting too." Kale's expression did not change. "My throne had 19 years of silence. It can survive one morning of your freedom." Something inside her loosened. "If you open that record, I will stand with you," he said. "If you need more time, I will stand with you. Whatever the name changes, I will not tell you what you are supposed to feel." Alara looked at the man who had once been expected to decide everyone's future simply because he wore a crown. "Then what are you asking me to do?" Kale answered softly. "Decide what you are ready to know." Alara looked across the clearing one last time. 19 years ago, no one had asked the child left in this snow what she wanted. Today, the sealed truth waited at Blackstone, and no king, council, prophecy, or forgotten law would open it before she was ready. She turned toward the road home. "Take me back." Kale waited. Alara met his eyes. "I want to know the name." The protected declaration waited in the same chamber where Kale had opened the royal succession review the day before. Rowan stood behind the central table, Adrian beside the archive ledger, and Mara near the eastern window. No council members had been invited. This moment belonged to authentication, not politics. Alara entered with Kale, but walked to the guardian position alone. Rowan placed the sealed folder before her. "The custody chain has been verified through every surviving reference," he said. "The declaration is authentic under the covenant standards in effect 19 years ago." Alara looked at Mara. "And the protected name?" "Verified against 2 independent records," Rowan answered. "Once you authorize disclosure, it becomes part of the formal review." Kale remained several feet behind her. He had kept his promise. He had not asked to see it first. Alara removed the silver guardian seal from beneath her cloak and placed it beside the folder. Open it. Rowan broke the archival protection and unfolded the declaration. The disputed succession branch belonged to House Vale. Mara closed her eyes. Alara knew the name. It appeared rarely in Blackstone's surviving history, an old royal branch believed to have ended before the succession ruling 19 years ago. House Vale had royal standing. Conditional standing, Rowan said. Its claim required independent verification before it could affect succession. That verification never occurred. Who filed the declaration? Elias Vale. Kill's expression shifted. The last recorded heir of that branch. Adrian opened another ledger. This declaration states Elias had transferred his succession claim into covenant review before his disappearance from the searchable record. Alara looked between them. What does that have to do with me? Mara answered. Your mother was not a Vale. Alara turned toward her. Then why were my records removed? Because your mother belonged to the witness line assigned to verify House Vale's declaration. The room became still. For years, Alara had wondered whether hidden royal blood explained why her identity had been erased. The truth was stranger. She had not been hidden because she could inherit a crown. She had been hidden because her family could force a crown to answer a question. Rowan continued. Your mother's family held one of the surviving covenant witness credentials. After her death, that line passed. Through you. I was a child, which meant you could not exercise the authority, Mara said. But while your identity remained verifiable, the witness line remained legally traceable. Dr. Hart understood that. So he requested authentication. Yes. 3 days later, your records disappeared from the searchable archive. Kale stepped closer. Who authorized their removal? Adrian turned the ledger toward Rowan. Beneath the obsolete classification code was a recovered notation. Rowan read it twice. The Office of Royal Administration. Kale's voice remained controlled. Under whose authority? Chancellor Corvin Hale's administrative seal. Mara looked toward Alara. He controlled succession records during the Northern Review. Hale died years ago, Alara said. 11 years ago, Adrian confirmed. Alara felt no satisfaction. A dead man could not explain why a child had grown up believing she had no history. Did he order me left in the snow? Rowan shook his head. The evidence does not establish that. Then no one will say it does. Everyone looked at her. I have spent too much of my life living inside conclusions people made without enough evidence. We will not repair that by inventing another one. Rowan nodded. Then the finding is narrower. Hale's office authorized removal of your searchable identity after Dr. Hart requested independent authentication of House Vale's evidence. And without my traceable witness line, the review lost one of the legal paths required to complete verification. Alara looked at the declaration. She had spent years asking who she really was. The answer was not princess, heir, or secret claimant. She was a witness. Someone whose existence made silence harder to preserve. Mara rose slowly. There is still one record you have not seen. Alara turned. What record? Dr. Hart left a certified account about the night you were found. Alara's breath caught. You had this. Not the original. A certified copy attached to my testimony. Until today, I could not prove why Hart wrote it or how it connected to the succession record. Alara thought of the clearing and the cedar beneath the morning snow. What does it say? Mara held her gaze. It says you were never supposed to be left there alone. Mara did not open the certified account immediately. She rested both hands on the folder as though 19 years of silence had given the paper a weight of its own. Alara remained across from her. Tell me what happened. Mara looked toward Rowan. He checked the authentication mark once more. The account was certified by Dr. Hart 6 days after you were found. Mara's testimony confirms the route, location, and people involved where her knowledge allows it. Anything beyond that remains unverified. Alara nodded. Read it. Mara drew a slow breath. Your mother knew someone inside the royal administration had begun searching for the surviving witness line. She did not know why at first. Dr. Hart did. Because of Elias Vale's declaration. Yes, Hart believed that once House Vale's evidence entered independent review, anyone controlling the old succession process would lose the ability to decide which records mattered. Your family's credential made that review possible. Kale remained quiet behind Alara. Mara continued. Your mother arranged for you to be moved north temporarily. Not abandoned. Moved. Lena Voss was supposed to carry you to a protected covenant household beyond the northern ridge. Did she? Part of the way. Lena learned the receiving household had been identified, so she changed the route. Alara pictured the clearing. Toward the creek. Yes, she was supposed to meet Hart near the cedar. He planned to take you somewhere the administration could not trace through official records. But he was not there. His travel credentials were questioned at a checkpoint. He was delayed. Alara heard what was coming. So Lena left me. Mara held her gaze. Hart had marked the cedar as the fixed rendezvous if their routes separated. Lena believed carrying you farther across open ground would make both of you easier to trace. She kept you sheltered at the one place Hart knew to search, wrapped you against the cold, and went to find help at a nearby ranger cabin. She believed she would be gone only minutes. Was she? Mara shook her head. The cabin had been abandoned. For the winter. By the time Lena returned toward the creek, Hart had reached the clearing from the opposite trail and found you. Alara stared at her. Then someone did come back. Yes. The answer should have comforted her. Instead, it hurt in a different way. Everyone had a reason, Alara said quietly. My mother had a reason. Hart had a reason. Lena had a reason. Mara said nothing. I was still the one left there. Cale moved one step closer, but stopped. Alara noticed. He was letting her decide whether she wanted comfort. After a moment, she extended her hand. Cale crossed the remaining distance and took it. What happened to Lena? Alara asked. Rowan consulted the record. She left the Northern Territory shortly afterward. Hart believed another return could expose your location. There is no evidence she participated in removing your identity. Did she know I survived? Hart sent confirmation through a Covenant contact. Mara said. She knew. Alara looked toward the final page. Was my mother alive when Hart found me? Mara's expression changed. Yes. Then why did she not come for me? Hart believed returning you immediately would expose both you and the witness line. Your mother agreed to remain separated until the succession evidence could be secured. And then my records were removed. 3 days later. Alara's voice dropped. What happened to her after that? Mara looked to Rowan. He answered carefully. The surviving Covenant register shows she remained under a protected identity after the archive suppression. She died less than 2 years later, before Hart could restore a secure connection between you. Alara went still. So she never had the chance to come back. The evidence cannot tell us what she would have done, Rowan said. Only that she did not live long enough for the original plan to be restored. Alara appreciated that he did not turn uncertainty into comfort. Mara slid one final certified page across the table. But we do know what she wanted when the separation began. At the bottom was a signature Alara had never seen before. Her mother's name. She wrote this to Hart? Yes. Alara placed her fingertips near the signature, without touching the ink. For most of her life, she had imagined the snow as proof that nobody had returned. Now she knew Lena had returned, Hart had found her, and her mother had expected the separation to end. None of it erased the years that followed. It simply replaced one cruel certainty with a more complicated truth. She had not been unwanted. She had been caught inside decisions made by frightened people and a system that allowed silence to outlive them. And now, for the first time, the silence had nowhere left to hide. By late afternoon, the great court had filled again. Rowan stood before the council with the authenticated House Veil Declaration, Dr. Hart's verification request, the order that removed Alara's searchable identity, and the surviving Covenant records arranged across the central table. Cale occupied the throne because the review had never suspended his authority. Alara stood at the guardian table, her mother's letter folded beneath her cloak. Rowan began without ceremony. The Royal Succession Review has reached a finding. The chamber fell silent. House Vale possessed a disputed succession claim 19 years ago. That claim qualified for independent Covenant review, but was never fully examined. Evidence required for that process was disrupted after the royal administration removed a traceable witness line from the searchable archive. A councilman glanced toward Alara. Her family. Yes, Rowan said. The evidence establishes procedural interference. It does not establish that House Vale would have prevailed. Cale leaned forward. Then state clearly what it establishes for the present throne. Rowan met his eyes. Your reign remains lawful. Relief moved quietly through the chamber, but Rowan did not close the ledger. Instead, he reached beneath the House Veil Declaration and removed a second document. There is another finding. The room tightened again. Chancellor Corvin Hale authorized the original restriction of Alara's identity. But his seal was not the last authorization attached to it. Cale's expression hardened. Are you saying Hale did not act alone? I am saying his death did not end what he started. Rowan placed 3 authenticated administrative entries on the table. After Hale's death, the restriction was renewed. 2 surviving archive officers approved continued classification after receiving notice that the record was connected to an unresolved covenant petition. A 3rd official authorized the removal of the witness reference from a secondary index. Uneasy movement passed through the court. One councilman rose halfway from his chair. Names. Not yet, Alara said. Every face turned toward her. Cale remained silent. Alara stepped forward. If the evidence supports charges, those people will answer for what they did. But not here, and not because this court is angry. Guardian, Aldrin said carefully. The Crown could suspend them immediately. Suspend their access to records and administrative authority while the evidence is reviewed, Alara replied. Do not declare them guilty before they are heard. Cale descended 1 step from the throne. They denied you that consideration. Alara looked at him. Exactly. The chamber went still. They denied me a hearing. We will not deny them one. For a moment, Cale simply watched her. Then he turned to Rowan. Establish an independent covenant tribunal. Preserve every related record. No accused official is to alter an archive, exercise administrative authority over this review, or leave Blackstone jurisdiction until the tribunal determines responsibility. Rowan bowed his head. It will be done. And the names? Aldrin asked. Released with the formal charges, Alara said. Not as rumors before evidence is presented. Cale's gaze returned to the 3 entries. Then they will face the law they helped silence. Rowan set the documents aside and returned to the succession finding. House Vale cannot be established as holding a superior right to the present throne. The lawful remedy is recognition that its claim was denied proper review, correction of the historical record, and preservation of every authenticated record connected to it. Alara rose again. And restoration of every surviving covenant record restricted under Hale's orders. Reconstruct the witness registry wherever authentication remains possible. Require independent review before any future succession petition can be sealed beyond a defined period. A councilwoman studied her. You are asking the Crown to limit its own authority. Cale answered before Alara could. Good. He came down the remaining steps. A law that protects truth only when the king approves of the truth protects the king, not the law. Aldrin looked toward Alara. And the Guardian office? Protected from removal by simple royal administration, she said. No future Guardian should need the permission of the institution being questioned in order to ask the question. Rowan placed the final finding before Cale. The Alpha King signed it. One by one, the council members added their seals. No throne changed hands. No secret heir appeared. Instead, something Blackstone had avoided for 19 years finally began. The record was corrected. The living would answer for what evidence proved they had done. The innocent would not be condemned simply because anger demanded someone to blame. And the dead would no longer be protected by silence. Rowan closed the succession ledger, but left the 3 administrative entries on the table. The royal succession review is concluded. The covenant accountability proceedings begin immediately. Alara touched her mother's letter beneath her cloak. Justice had once seemed to her like a single answer powerful enough to repair the past. Now she understood it differently. Truth had to be named. Guilt had to be proven. Power had to accept limits. And even those who had denied others fairness had to receive it themselves. Aldrin waited until the clerks had secured the tribunal records. Then he spoke. There remains one matter this review cannot settle. Alara looked up. What matter? His eyes moved from the Guardian seal at her collar to Cale standing beside the throne. Now that the Guardian office is permanently restored, Blackstone must decide what place its Guardian may hold beside its king. The council did not leave after the review ended. Clerks removed the House Vale records, but the 3 administrative entries remained under covenant seal at Rowan's table, guarded now as evidence rather than history. Alara stayed at the Guardian position while Aldrin opened a restored ledger. Before we address the Guardian's place beside the crown, the court should understand what happens next. Rowan nodded. The 3 officials identified in the surviving records have been suspended from administrative authority, pending independent review. Their archive credentials and official seals have been surrendered. None has been declared guilty. A councilman frowned. Even after what we have seen, especially after what we have seen, Alara said. Blackstone cannot repair a system that buried evidence by deciding evidence no longer matters when we dislike the accused. The room quieted. Aldrin studied her. And if the tribunal proves they knowingly maintained Hale's restrictions, then they answer under covenant law. You do not want mercy? Alara held his gaze. I want accuracy. Her voice remained calm. I do not want anyone punished for believing an old system worked. I do not want someone condemned because they inherited an order they did not understand. But if a person knew the restriction was concealing an unresolved covenant petition and deliberately kept it hidden, that is not tradition. That is a choice. Cale said nothing, but something in his expression told her he understood the distinction. Alara continued. I do not need their humiliation. I need responsibility attached to the people who earned it, and innocence protected where the evidence supports it. Rowan closed the tribunal register. That is the standard the panel will apply. Aldrin turned to the larger question. Then we must make certain the same abuse cannot happen again. Alara placed the restored witness registry beside her guardian seal. No administrative office should be able to remove a person from searchable records without independent notice. No succession petition should disappear because one official controls its classification. Every sealed petition needs a review deadline. Every restriction on identity records needs a traceable authorization. And there must be an appeal process that does not require permission from the Crown. A councilwoman leaned forward. That gives the Guardian considerable authority. Then give the Guardian accountability too, Alara replied. Independent review when the office is challenged. Protected records of every decision. No authority without a record of how it was used. Cale's mouth almost curved into a smile. You are limiting your own power before you have finished receiving it. Alara glanced at him. I have recently learned that unlimited power creates paperwork. A few restrained laughs moved through the chamber, breaking the tension. Then Aldrin opened another section of the ledger. There remains the institutional conflict. The old law anticipated independence between Crown and Guardian. It did not anticipate the Guardian becoming the King's bride. Suggestions came quickly. Restore the separate Guardian residence. Give Alara permanent royal status. Establish council oversight. Require physical separation between the offices. Define her formally as queen so her relationship to the crown could be codified. Alara listened as the discussion changed shape. Minutes earlier, they had been speaking about preventing institutions from deciding which identities mattered. Now they were deciding where she should live, which title she should accept, and what her marriage should mean. Cale stepped away from the throne. Stop. The chamber fell silent. You have spent this day examining what happens when institutions decide for people without allowing them a voice. He looked around the court. And now you are doing it again. Aldrin lowered his pen. Your Majesty, the conflict is legitimate. Then resolve the law. Do not resolve her. No one answered. Cale descended the steps, but stopped before reaching Alara's table. Define the Guardian's independence. Protect the office from me and from whoever wears this crown after me. Establish the safeguards, the review process, the residence, and the authority necessary for the Guardian to act without royal permission. His gaze settled on Alara. But whether she lives beside me, accepts another title, works from another residence, or chooses a life none of us have considered is not a question for this council to answer. The silence that followed felt different from the ones before. Alara realized why. For once, no institution was preparing to tell her where she belonged. Cale looked toward Aldrin. Everything the law requires, settle here. Then he looked at Alara, and the authority disappeared from his voice. Everything that belongs to her life, ask her. For several seconds, no one in the chamber spoke. Alara felt every pair of eyes turn toward her, but the silence was different now. They were no longer waiting for Cale to define her place. They were waiting for her to speak. Aldrin slowly closed the covenant ledger. Then we should hear the Guardian. Alara looked at Cale. He had stepped away from the center of the chamber, leaving open space between them. It was a small gesture, but she understood it. He was refusing to turn freedom into another command. I know what the office needs, she said. Independent staff. Independent records. Authority to investigate without royal permission. A protected budget that cannot be withdrawn because the Crown dislikes a finding. Aldrin nodded. Those provisions can be drafted. And the Guardian residence? The councilwoman asked. Alara paused. Available, not mandatory. The office needs a place beyond royal control. That does not mean the person holding it must be ordered to live there. Another councilman leaned forward. And your position within the royal household? For once, the question had been asked instead of answered for her. I am Kale's wife. That does not make my office his. I am guardian. That does not require me to stop being his wife. Some will question whether those loyalties can coexist. They should, Alaris said. And the law should give them a way to challenge my decisions if evidence shows I failed my duty. Independence should not mean being beyond accountability. Rowan lifted his gaze. A review panel independent of both Guardian and Crown could serve that purpose. Then included. Aldrin began making notes. The argument that had filled the chamber became something quieter and more useful. They were no longer arranging Alara's life. They were building safeguards around an office that would someday belong to someone else. By sunset, the first framework was complete. The Guardian would have protected authority, independent access to records, a separate residence when needed, and formal review procedures for conflicts involving the Crown. Nothing in the law would dictate whom the Guardian could marry or where the Guardian must call home. When the final clerk left, Alara remained near the long table. Kale stood by the western windows, watching snow gather along the courtyard walls. You were quiet, she said. You did not need me speaking for you. That has never stopped kings before. A faint smile touched his face. I am trying to improve the profession. Alara smiled and walked toward him. You could have ended that debate immediately. I could have ended the noise. Is there a difference? A large one. Kale turned from the window. If I had declared you queen and ordered everyone to accept it, they would have obeyed. If I had ordered you into an independent residence, they would have called that wisdom too. And what would you have called it? Deciding your life because I had the power to. Alara studied him. You once made decisions for me. Yes. He did not defend himself. Sometimes because you were in danger. Sometimes because I thought protecting you gave me the right to know what was best for you. And now I know protection can become another kind of cage if the protected person never gets to open the door. Alara looked through the window at the falling snow. Everyone keeps asking where the Guardian belongs. That is not the question I care about. What is? Kale's expression softened. Where do you want to belong? I do not know yet. Kale nodded without disappointment. Then do not answer yet. The court will want an answer. The court has enough answers for one day. And you? I can wait. Alara searched his face. Even if the answer is not the one you hope for? Especially then. He reached into his coat and placed a small iron key on the table. What is that? The restored Guardian residence. You had it prepared? Rowan had the locks changed this afternoon. And you are giving it to me? Kale shook his head. No. I am making sure no one else keeps it from you. Alara stared at the key. One door led back toward the life she shared with Kale. The other opened onto a place that could belong entirely to her. For the first time, both were unlocked, and no one stood behind her insisting where she had to go. Alara did not use the key that night. She carried it instead, feeling its small weight in her pocket as she walked through Blackstone after the council chambers had emptied. She passed the restored archive and the quiet northern corridor where people had once lowered their voices when she approached because they did not know what to call her. Bride, outsider, mystery, guardian. Each name had seemed to arrive with instructions. By morning, she understood why Kale's question had been harder than anything the records had answered. Knowing what had happened to her was not the same as knowing what she wanted next. She found him shortly after sunrise near the lower courtyard, preparing to ride north. He looked at her once and seemed to understand. The clearing. They rode without guards. Fresh snow covered the road, and Blackstone disappeared behind the pines. Kale did not fill the journey with questions. When they reached the old creek, they left the horses beneath the trees and walked the final distance. The leaning cedar waited where it had the day before. Alara stopped beneath it. I read my mother's letter again last night. Kale remained several feet away. Did it help? Yes. And no. She looked across the clearing. She loved me. I believe that now. She thought staying away would protect me until Hart could restore the review. Then the records disappeared, and she died before the plan could be repaired. Knowing that does not erase what happened to you. No, Alara closed her fingers around the key in her pocket. For years, I thought healing meant finding a reason good enough to make the pain disappear. Maybe it does not need to disappear. She looked at him. You are becoming dangerously wise. Do not tell the council. A small laugh escaped her. Then the silence returned, gentler this time. Yesterday the council kept asking where the guardian belongs, Alara said. They did. You asked something different. I asked where you want to belong. And if I still do not know, then I ask again when you do. She studied him. No deadline. No royal recommendation? Absolutely not. That must be painful for you. More than you know. Alara smiled faintly. Ask me properly. Kill's expression changed. If there were no throne waiting at Blackstone, no guardian seal around your neck, no old covenant telling you what duty requires, and no court waiting for the correct answer, what would you want? That is not fair. Why? Because those things are part of me now. Kill considered that. Then keep them. Remove only everyone else's expectations. Alara lowered her eyes. And you? Do I remove what you want to? Yes. The answer made her look up. You know what I hope. But I will not hide my hope inside your freedom and pretend it belongs there. What if I live at the guardian residence? Then I will make sure the roof does not leak. What if the work takes me away from Blackstone for months? Then Blackstone will survive your absence. What if I never want a crown? Then I will never put one on your head. Her throat tightened. And if the life I want does not place me beside you every day? Kale held her gaze. Then I will miss you when you are gone, and I will still respect the answer. Alara looked away before emotion could steal her voice. For most of her life, love had seemed inseparable from permission. Someone accepted her, so she could stay. Someone rejected her, so she had to leave. Someone protected her, so she owed them trust. Kale was offering something more difficult. Her freedom did not owe him the outcome he hoped for. Alara took the iron key from her pocket. I think I understand why I could not answer yesterday. Kale waited. I was still trying to find the answer that would prove something. Living at the guardian residence would prove I was independent. Staying with you would prove I loved you. Accepting a crown would prove I belonged. Refusing one would prove no one could define me. She closed her fingers around the key. Every answer was still about everyone else. Kale said nothing. Alara looked toward Blackstone beyond the trees, then at the cedar where frightened decisions had once shaped her life. Ask me one more time. Kale's voice softened. What do you want, Alara? She met his eyes. This time, she knew. Alara looked at the iron key in her hand, then closed her fingers around it. I choose the work. Kale did not move. There was no surprise in his face, no disappointment, only attention. Alara drew a slow breath. I want the guardian office. Not because I need to prove I can stand apart from you, and not because someone decided it was my destiny. I want it because I know what it feels like when a person has a question and every door stays closed. She looked toward the cedar. I want to keep one of those doors open. Kale nodded once. Then keep it open. Alara almost smiled. I am not finished. A faint warmth entered his expression. I know. She slipped the key back into her pocket. I choose Blackstone. This time, something changed in his eyes. Not because it is your kingdom. Not because the court finally decided I belong there. Blackstone is where I learned that home does not have to be the place that knew you first. Sometimes it is the place where you are finally allowed to become yourself. The wind stirred snow from the cedar branches. I want the guardian residence restored. I want an office there, with a door people can reach without walking through the palace first. Some nights I may stay there. Sometimes the work may take me far beyond Blackstone. Then go where the work takes you. You are making this very difficult to turn into a dramatic argument. I can object if it helps. Alara laughed softly. Too late. Kale smiled, but he still did not step closer. He was waiting. That mattered more than she could explain. Alara looked down at the snow between them. Once, other people had decided where she would go, what truth she could know, and whether she belonged anywhere at all. Even kindness had sometimes arrived with expectations attached. Stay, trust, forgive, belong. She had spent years answering questions other people had written. Not this one. She lifted her eyes. And I choose you. Kale went completely still. Alara took one step toward him. Not because you found me. Not because you protected me. Not because you are Alpha King. And not because some old law or bond says I should stand beside you. She took another step. I choose you because when you had enough power to decide for both of us, you learned to ask instead. Kale's voice was low. Alara, I am still not finished. The smallest smile returned to his face. Of course you are not. She stopped within reach, but did not take his hand yet. I will disagree with you. I expect it. I may investigate decisions made by your own court. You already have. I will leave when the work requires it. I know. And I will not become smaller, so the people around you feel more comfortable with me. Kale answered without hesitation. I would never ask you to. Alaris searched his face. Then I want to come home to you. For the first time, Kale's composure nearly broke. He looked toward the frozen creek for a heartbeat, then back at her. You know I would have waited. I know. As long as you need it. That is one of the reasons I do not need to anymore. Silence settled around them, but it no longer felt empty. Kale slowly extended his hand, palm open. He left the final few inches between them. Alara looked at it and remembered how many hands throughout her life had pulled, directed, or protected without asking where she wanted to go. This one simply waited. She placed her hand in his. Kale's fingers closed gently around hers. There is one more question, he said. Alara raised an eyebrow. You are becoming demanding. Where do you want the guardian key kept? She laughed. With me. Good answer. There was no wrong answer. Even better. They began walking toward the horses, their steps leaving 2 trails across the fresh snow. At the edge of the clearing, Alara stopped and looked back at the cedar. The past had not changed. A child had still waited there without understanding why the people who loved her were gone. But the woman standing here now was no longer waiting for someone else to tell her where she belonged. Kale gave her hand the slightest squeeze. Ready? Alara turned toward the road south. Beyond the trees waited an office of her own. Work she had chosen, a kingdom still learning how to listen, and a man who had learned that love did not require control. She looked at him and smiled. Take me home. 3 months later, the old guardian residence no longer looked abandoned. Warm light filled its windows before sunrise, and a new brass plate beside the entrance carried no royal crest. It simply read Guardian Office. By then, the Covenant accountability proceedings had concluded. The tribunal found that 2 former archive officers had knowingly renewed Hale's unlawful restrictions after receiving notice that Alara's identity was connected to an unresolved Covenant petition. Both were permanently removed from public office, stripped of archive authority and administrative privileges, and barred from holding any position capable of restricting Covenant records again. The third official was cleared after the evidence showed that the secondary index order had been executed without knowledge of the concealed petition. Alara had insisted that the acquittal be entered into the public record with the same clarity as the convictions. Chancellor Corvin Hale could never stand before the tribunal himself, but Blackstone's official history no longer described his actions as administrative necessity. The corrected record named them for what the evidence proved they were: an abuse of authority that obstructed lawful Covenant review. His portrait was removed from the Hall of Chancellors, not in celebration or revenge, but because Blackstone would no longer honor a false version of its own history. Alara had attended the final proceeding, but she had refused any role in determining the sentences. Justice, she had learned, did not become stronger when it belonged to her anger. It became stronger when the same law protected the accused, cleared the innocent, and held the guilty responsible. Then life moved forward. People came through the Guardian Office with inheritance disputes, missing family records, sealed petitions, and questions they had once believed were too small to reach anyone with authority. Some left with answers. Others left knowing someone had finally written their questions down. Rowan oversaw the restoration of Covenant records. Adrian rebuilt the archive index so no protected document could disappear because one office changed its classification. Mara returned north after helping train the first independent verification staff, but her letters arrived almost every week. Kale remained Alpha King. Alara remained Guardian. Sometimes they disagreed in council. Once, Alara formally challenged a royal administrative order, and Kale spent half a morning arguing that his interpretation was correct. She proved it was not. He signed the correction before lunch. That evening, he asked whether she intended to look pleased with herself through dinner. She told him she had not yet decided. Blackstone learned something from watching them that no law could teach as quickly. Love did not require agreement, and authority did not require obedience from the person standing closest to it. Alara kept the iron key Kale had given her. Some nights, she stayed at the Guardian residence when work ran late. Other nights, she crossed the courtyard toward the rooms she shared with him. No schedule decided which place counted as home. On the first heavy snowfall of winter, Kale found her outside the Guardian office with her cloak already fastened. You are leaving without an escort. Alara looked at him. Is that a royal complaint? It is a husband noticing that his wife has taken the horses. One horse. That is worse. You were planning to leave me here. She smiled. You can come if you keep up. An hour later, they reached the northern clearing. Snow covered the old creek and rested along the cedar branches. Alara stood beneath the tree without fear. She knew now that her mother had loved her, Lena had returned, and Dr. Hart had found her. None of those truths erased the lonely years that followed. Healing had never required her to pretend otherwise. Kale stopped beside her. Does it feel different? Yes. How? Alara considered the question. Smaller. The clearing. The memory. She looked at the cedar. It used to feel like my whole story began here. And now it is one place where something happened to me. It is not who I am. Snow drifted quietly between them. Kale extended his hand, leaving the final distance to her. Alara placed her hand in his, and together they started toward the trail. At its edge, Kale stopped. Which way? Two paths waited ahead. One led directly toward the Royal Road. The other curved past the Guardian residence before reaching Blackstone. Once, other people had decided where Alara would be taken, what name she could keep, and where she belonged. Now the key in her pocket was her own, and beside her walked a man who no longer needed to lead the way. Through the falling snow, the lights of Blackstone appeared between the trees. 19 years ago, Alara had been left beneath a winter sky with no voice in where her life would go. Now Kale asked only where she wanted to go. She tightened her hand around his, looked toward the longer trail, and smiled. Home.